Laura Ingraham is no stranger to controversy. Since joining Fox News in 2017, she's been a ratings magnet, pulling in massive views and keeping audiences glued to their screens. However, the spotlight also brings scrutiny, and Ingraham has consistently placed the network in challenging situations over the years. Now, rumors are swirling that she might finally be saying goodbye to Fox News, especially after a dark secret is beginning to surface. What exactly is this secret? And could this truly mark the beginning of the end for Laura Ingraham? Join us as we dive into all the drama and uncover what's really going on behind the scenes. Laura Ingraham's journey. When it comes to drama, the Ingraham family always seems to find itself right in the center of it. And if there's one thing we've learned over the years, it's that wherever Laura Ingraham is involved, controversy is never far behind. Laura Ingraham isn't afraid to stir the pot. From her early days as an undergraduate at Dartmouth, she was already making waves. As editor of a right-wing campus newspaper, she famously sent an undercover reporter into a gay student organization, not to protect students, but to report on who was there. Names were published, identities exposed, and controversy erupted. Oh, and that's only the beginning. Before her Fox News era, Ingraham dominated the airwaves. In the early 2000s, she launched her own radio program, which grew to 5 million weekly listeners across 300 syndicated stations. That success paved the way for her 2017 debut on Fox News, where she quickly became the most watched female news anchor in America. But behind the polished TV persona, the sleek office dresses, the flawless makeup and carefully styled hair, there's a much more complex story. Born in June 1963 in Glastonbury, Connecticut, Laura didn't grow up in luxury. Despite living in an affluent suburb, her family was working class. Her mom was a waitress, while her dad ran a car wash. They were deeply patriotic. They were the kind of household where the American flag flew proudly year-round. She was the youngest of 4, growing up with 3 older brothers who she once described as pretty rough and tumble. That environment toughened her up and made her combative. At school, she wasn't political, but she was athletic and competitive. One moment that stuck with her was seeing Vietnam War protesters burning the American flag on TV. She asked her mother why. Her mom's reply, because their parents didn't teach them respect. That moment set something off. In the mid-1980s, she enrolled at Dartmouth College, where she became the first female editor of the Dartmouth Review, a controversial right-wing paper. She described the experience as all-consuming, saying that the review had taken over her life. She reportedly thrived on being contrarian, remarking that the college was then run by 60s liberals, who had once stormed administrative buildings and now didn't know how to handle a conservative student paper. But her time at the Dartmouth Review was anything but smooth. She and the paper were sued for libel by Professor William Cole after an article described his class as the most outrageous on campus and compared him to a used Brillo pad. Cole, who is black, stated that the piece, titled Professor, Bill Cole's song and dance routine was racially motivated. The case was eventually dropped, with both sides claiming victory. Cole was promoted to full professor, while Ingraham said that she had proven her point. She remarked that she was not sure who had won, but viewed it as a breakthrough for investigative journalism in the classroom. Still, the most infamous episode came when she published transcripts from a closed-door meeting of a gay student alliance, outing names, sharing details, and accusing the group of being cheerleaders for latent campus sodomites. She defended the move as an effort to promote transparency, stating that it was important to ensure college grants were being used appropriately. Years later, she attempted to justify it in a Washington Post op-ed, saying the paper used an outrageous tone to highlight a double standard in Dartmouth's funding policies. But not everyone bought it. Jeffrey Hart, the review's own faculty advisor, called her op-ed a phony political confession. In a letter to the Weekly Standard, he accused her of harboring the most extreme anti-homosexual views imaginable. So now, as whispers grow louder that Laura Ingraham may be on her way out at Fox News, the resurfacing of these dark moments from her past may not be coincidence. Could this be the beginning of the end for one of America's most polarizing media figures? Stay tuned, because if there's one thing we know for sure, the drama is far from over. Life after college. After college, Ingram landed a spot in the Reagan White House, working on hot-button issues like abortion and school prayer. Her biggest surprise? The size of her office. From there, she moved on to become a speechwriter for the Secretary of Transportation in 1988. But even then, she knew Washington wasn't her final stop. "I think if you stay in Washington, you forget what mainstream America is all about," she told the New York Times. She went on to earn her law degree from the University of Virginia, cruising campus in a modest Honda, while her license plate proudly read "Farragut," a nod to her firm conservative views. After graduation, she clerked for federal judge Ralph Winter and then scored one of the most prestigious gigs in law, clerking for Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. From 1993 to 1996, she took a high-paying job at the elite Wall Street law firm Skadden Arps. But even with that golden resume, she was restless. Unsure of her true calling, Ingram started writing op-eds. Her sharp takes and confident voice got noticed fast because in 1995, she graced the front page of the New York Times Magazine alongside other rising conservative stars. That same year, she hosted a New Year's event called The Dark Ages Weekend, a tongue-in-cheek conservative counter to the Clinton-era Renaissance Weekend. Instead of calm discussions and networking, this conference featured guests punching and kicking boxing bags decorated with pictures of famous Democrats. Subtle? Not at all. By 1996, Laura had officially crossed into television. She began appearing on cable news via MSNBC, at a time when the Clinton-Lewinsky scandal opened the floodgates for a new breed of media figure: young, telegenic, outspoken conservative women. The media dubbed them the Pundettes, a crew that included Laura Ingraham, Ann Coulter, and Kellyanne Fitzpatrick, who would later become Kellyanne Conway. Ingram didn't take long to stir up headlines. In one now infamous 1997 MSNBC segment, she responded to a fellow guest with the line, "No one wants to see fat people on the cover of magazines in swimsuits," after being asked 5 times. What does that mean? Her style was sharp, cutting, and unapologetically polarizing. To critics who claimed she only landed TV spots because she was blonde and wore miniskirts, she fired back hard. "It's not like I just showed up blonde and in a miniskirt and said, 'Hire me,'" she told the New York Times. "If I'd known it was that easy, I wouldn't have bothered clerking for the Supreme Court or working at a prestigious firm." And critics were taking note. In a 1997 Salon piece, media analyst Eric Alterman wrote, "More than anyone else alive, I fear, Laura Ingraham speaks to the zeitgeist of the contemporary American media." He called her young, sexy, and ambitious, and described her as someone who argued politics like a courtroom brawler, where only her interpretation could possibly be right, and everyone else was hopelessly lost. But even with all the fire she brought to the table, the question remains: how long can a media career built on controversy stay standing? Because while Ingram could hold her own in a debate, sometimes all it took was a laugh to win. Alterman himself admitted she once beat him in an argument simply by laughing. It's a tactic she leaned into over the years, using humor, mockery, and sound effects on her radio show to ridicule her opponents. A monkey screeching when a politician spoke. A segment called Lie of the Day. Even the Flipper theme song whenever someone brought up John Kerry. Her brand was clear, sharp-tongued, unfiltered, and inflammatory, especially when it came to immigration. where she reduced complex stories to what she called illegal immigrant sob stories. By the late 90s, she had her own show on MSNBC, Watch It. She told the Hartford Courant that Republicans needed to become more fashionable and maybe even understand Lauryn Hill if they wanted to stay relevant. The show played Bob Dylan between segments and tried to bridge culture and politics, but it only lasted 17 months. Ingram later joked it should have been called Watch It Get Cancelled. Still, cancellation didn't slow her down. In 2000, she published her first book, The Hillary Trap, where she argued that Hillary Clinton had actually hurt women's rights by expecting and demanding special treatment. According to the New York Times, Ingram turned Hillary into a stand-in for everything she despised about the legacy of the 60s: feminism, entitlement, and resistance to school vouchers. Her second book followed in 2003, Shut Up and Sing: How Elites from Hollywood, Politics, and the UN are Subverting America. The message? America's elites were talking down to real Americans, and it was time to push back. That same spirit carried into the Laura Ingraham Show, which launched in 2001 and quickly gained traction. Syndicated to over 200 stations, eventually expanding to 300, the show pulled in an estimated 5 million listeners each week. She'd found her audience and her power. But even then, cracks began to form between Ingram and the party she once championed. While she idolized Reagan's brand of conservatism, George W. Bush's presidency began to lose her. She opposed the Iraq War's execution and was publicly against Bush's nomination of Harriet Miers for the Supreme Court, calling her too liberal and too unqualified. According to the Washington Post, Ingram and other conservatives didn't kill Miers's nomination single-handedly, but they did shift the conversation fast. They turned against their own president, reframed the narrative, and pushed hard enough that Miers withdrew. That was 2005, but the rift with the Republican establishment only widened. She never fully warmed to John McCain. She wasn't sold on Mitt Romney either. And both men went on to lose to Barack Obama, fueling Ingram's belief that the grand old party had lost its spine. Then came something that changed everything and slowed Ingram down: a cancer diagnosis. The secret Laura Ingraham kept hidden. In 2005, Ingram dropped a bombshell that no one expected. She called into her show to tell listeners she had breast cancer. She asked for prayers and got them. Though she had cancer, Ingram didn't slow down as she kept on working. Laura's diagnosis came just 6 years after she lost her mother to lung cancer. Speaking on the cancer, Ingraham later described herself not as a survivor, but as a thriver. That same defiance would define the next chapter of her career. In 2007, she released Power to the People, a call to arms against what she saw as the growing threats of political correctness, bureaucratic overreach, and consumer addiction. She claimed fringe groups had hijacked American values, and it was time to take them back. In 2008, she adopted her first child, a daughter from Guatemala named Maria. 2 more would follow, sons Dmitry and Nikolai, adopted from Russia. She was now a single mother of 3, balancing the roles of pundit, parent, and public provocateur. In 2010, she released The Obama Diaries, a satirical take on the Obama presidency, told through fictional diary entries supposedly found by a White House worker in the Watergate complex. It was sharp and biting and a New York Times bestseller. But the following year, the tone of political discourse hit an even nastier note, this time with Ingram on the receiving end. After she criticized President Obama for visiting Ireland during a deadly tornado in Missouri, MSNBC host Ed Schultz called her a right-wing slut on air. He was suspended and later issued a public apology. Ingram, to her credit, accepted it. But then, in 2012, Ingram took a pause. She parted ways with Talk Radio Network, where she'd built her reputation behind the mic. The split, according to the Los Angeles Times, stemmed from ongoing tensions with management. She broke the news with signature sarcasm. "After much thought and reflection, I have decided to pursue my first loves: modern dance and the xylophone. In the highly unlikely event that these efforts do not prove fruitful, I intend to return to radio." Of course, she returned. Her show came back stronger, if still under the shadow of conservative titans like Rush Limbaugh. But she proved her influence in 2014 when she backed an obscure Tea Party candidate named David Bratt. He went on to unseat Republican House Majority Leader Eric Cantor in a stunning upset, something nearly no one saw coming, except Ingram. Then came her biggest political bet yet. When the 2016 election cycle rolled around, the Republican establishment kept its distance from Donald Trump, but Ingram didn't. After a call from Donald Trump Jr., she agreed to speak at the Republican National Convention in Cleveland. That moment cemented her place as one of Trump's earliest and most loyal media backers. Once he took office, there were whispers that Ingram might join the administration as White House Communications Director. The job ultimately went to someone else, but the message was clear. Ingram had the president's ear. Soon enough, Fox called. In October 2017, the Ingram angle premiered on Fox News at 10 p.m., a critical time slot after the allegations and the eventual departure of Bill O'Reilly. Hiring Ingram wasn't just a promotion, it was a power play. Fox, fresh off internal scandals and public shakeups, was picking a direction. As The Guardian put it, by choosing Ingram, the network picked a side in the Republican Civil War. The Washington Post called her Trump before Trump. East Coast-based, privileged upbringing, but pitching herself as the voice of the heartland. The formula wasn't new, but now it had a nightly platform and millions of viewers. With the rise of Trumpism, Ingram wasn't just along for the ride. She was in the driver's seat, helping steer the culture wars in real time, working at Fox News. In 2017, despite internal concerns and a reputation for behind-the-scenes clashes, Fox News made its move. Laura Ingraham was given her own primetime show. According to Vanity Fair, producers were well aware of her combative history. So much so that newsroom staff sometimes kept their eyes on the muted control room screens just to catch the fireworks. But Fox weren't after harmony. They were chasing momentum. By placing Ingram at 10 p.m., right after Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity, the network solidified its pivot toward a more populist, hard-hitting brand of conservatism, one that mirrored the rise of Donald Trump. With Martha McCallum anchoring the story at 7 p.m., Fox News now had two women headlining primetime, a first for the network. Ingram wasn't new to the Fox family. She'd been a regular since 2007, with her recurring segment The Ingram Angle on Bill O'Reilly's now-defunct show. But now, following O'Reilly's departure amid scandal, her segment graduated to a full show. Same name, bigger spotlight. In a statement, Ingram said, "Martha, Tucker, and Sean have proven that they understand the pulse of America across the political and the cultural spectrum. I look forward to informing and entertaining the audience and introducing new voices to the conversation." And that audience was growing fast. Backed by her connections in Trump's inner circle, including strategist Steve Bannon, Ingram's influence surged. Bannon even hosted a party for her book, Billionaire at the Barricades: The Populist Revolution from Reagan to Trump, at Breitbart's headquarters, underscoring just how deeply embedded she had become in the new conservative vanguard. From courtroom-style takedowns to primetime power plays, Laura Ingraham had proven that controversy wasn't her Achilles heel. It was her strategy. And for better or worse, it was working. Ingram versus LeBron James. By 2018, things were going pretty well for Laura Ingraham. Her show was picking up steam, her books were selling, and her voice was louder than ever on Fox News. But then came the moment that shifted how many people saw her. a clash that made national headlines and stirred a cultural storm. It started with 4 words: shut up and dribble. LeBron James, one of the most influential athletes in the world, had shared some criticism of then-President Donald Trump. Ingram, true to her blunt style, responded on air by telling him to stick to basketball and stay out of politics. The backlash was immediate and massive. Many accused her of being dismissive, even racist. Critics said it wasn't just about silencing political opinions, it was about trying to silence him, a black man using his platform to speak up. Ingram didn't see it that way. She defended herself, saying she'd used similar lines for years, even pointing to her 2006 book, Shut Up and Sing, which targeted liberal celebrities speaking out politically. But this time was different. LeBron didn't back down. In fact, he leaned in. "We will definitely not shut up and dribble," he said during NBA All-Star Weekend. "I mean too much to society, too much to the youth, too much to so many kids who feel like they don't have a way out." He wasn't just defending himself, he was speaking for a generation that saw athletes as more than entertainers, as leaders, as voices, as hope. And in a moment of confidence, he added, "I had no idea who she was, until now." So she won in that case. That jab, casual and cool, echoed louder than the original insult. For Ingram, it became a defining moment, not just because of what she said, but because of how the country responded. Her supporters saw her as holding the line. Her critics saw her as crossing one. Either way, it was clear. This wasn't just media drama. This was about identity, voice, and who gets to be heard. And believe it or not, things were about to get even messier. The Florida school massacre controversy. Just a month after her headline-making clash with LeBron James, Laura Ingraham found herself at the center of another firestorm, one that would cost her far more than a few bad headlines. In March 2018, Ingram tweeted about David Hog, a student survivor of the Parkland school shooting, mocking him for not being accepted into 4 colleges. David Hog was rejected by 4 colleges, to which he applied and whines about it. She wrote, linking to an article. It was a jab that felt to many deeply personal and incredibly tone-deaf. Hog wasn't just any high school senior, he had just survived one of the deadliest school shootings in U.S. history. And instead of hiding or grieving in silence, he'd become one of the loudest youth voices calling for gun reform. The backlash came fast, and it was fierce. Hog didn't respond with insults, he responded with a campaign. He posted a list of companies advertising on Ingram's show and urged his followers to contact them. One by one, the brands began to pull out. Office Depot, TripAdvisor, Expedia, Hulu, Johnson & Johnson, Wayfair, Nestlé, Nutrish. Even TripAdvisor issued a blunt rebuke saying, "These statements, focused on a high school student, cross the line of decency." Faced with the growing storm, Ingram offered an apology on Twitter. "On reflection, in the spirit of Holy Week, I apologize for any upset or hurt my tweet caused him or any of the brave victims of Parkland." But Hog wasn't moved. "No," he told NBC News, "she only cares about her pocketbook, and that's just sad." He pointed out that Ingram had a pattern. This wasn't the first time she had mocked people for using their voices. She'd told LeBron James and Kevin Durant to shut up and dribble just weeks earlier. And while he appreciated the advertisers who took a stand, Hog questioned why it had taken a student-led campaign to make it happen. As for his college admissions, Hog shared that he'd been accepted to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, CSU San Marcos, and Florida Atlantic University. Solid schools by any measure, but the sting of rejection, especially from the more selective UC system, despite his 4.1 GPA, still hurt. "For me, it hurts to be rejected from college, obviously," he said honestly. Yet he wasn't wallowing. He was growing, becoming an advocate, taking a traumatic moment and using it to spark a national movement. Some admissions experts, like counselor Elizabeth Lascala, noted that Hog could appeal those decisions. After all, he had changed in profound ways, stepping into the public eye, learning to lead, and taking on some of the most powerful people in media. And at California State University San Marcos, where he was accepted, administrators welcomed the idea of him joining their campus. "It's not just about his education," said Associate Vice President Scott Hagg. "It's about his mission." Even more controversies? Still in 2018, Ingrams stirred backlash again when she defended the Trump administration's policy of separating migrant children from their parents at the U.S.-Mexico border. She described the child detention centers as essentially summer camps. This statement, of course, caused public outrage. But just 2 months later, in August, she was under fire once more. This time, it was for saying that America was changing in troubling ways due to demographic changes, which she linked to illegal immigration. Though she argues that it had nothing to do with race, a lot of people disagreed with her. Many people saw her words as nothing but racially charged. But while Ingram was facing attacks from outside, she was also facing them from inside. And from her brother, nonetheless. Starting in early 2018, Curtis Ingram took to Twitter to call his sister out publicly, branding her a racist and Nazi sympathizer. In an interview with the Daily Beast, he said their relationship soured after she joined Fox News. And it didn't end there. In September 2019, Ingram was back in the headlines after comparing climate activist Greta Thunberg and her supporters to the eerie, cult-like children from Stephen King's Children of the Corn. In the horror story, children obey a mysterious deity who instructs them to murder adults in rural Nebraska. The comparison drew heavy criticism. But it was later that year, as Donald Trump faced impeachment, that Ingram seemed to truly find her lane. According to Slate, while Tucker Carlson took a more serious tone and Sean Hannity leaned into outrage, Ingram wielded her legal background to frame the impeachment trial as a complete sham. From impeachment, she moved on to downplaying COVID-19. In February 2020, she called Democrats the Pandemic Party and accused them of using the virus as a political weapon. By March, she referred to the media as panic pushers and even tweeted, then deleted, that it was a great time to fly if you weren't in a high-risk group. But when Trump declared a national emergency later that month, she changed her tone. Ingram began calling COVID-19 a dangerous health crisis, according to the Washington Post. Despite the controversies, or perhaps because of them, her audience remained loyal. In February 2020, 3.6 million people tuned in to watch her, making her the most-watched female cable news host in history. With numbers like that, controversy may not just be part of her brand, it may be what keeps it thriving. Fox News history, with controversial figures. After hiring and standing by Laura Ingraham, it comes as no surprise that Fox News has a track record of backing controversial figures, even in the face of serious allegations. First, it was Ingraham, then came Roger Ailes, and the list didn't stop there. But first, let's zoom in on Ailes. On July 6, 2016, former Fox and Friends co-host Gretchen Carlson filed a sexual harassment lawsuit against Ailes in the Superior Court of New Jersey. Carlson alleged she was fired for refusing Ailes's sexual advances. After Carlson came forward, 6 more women spoke to Gabriel Sherman of New York Magazine, alleging that Ailes had sexually harassed them and that Ailes had spoken openly of expecting women to perform sexual favors in exchange for job opportunities. Among the women was Megyn Kelly, who told investigators Ailes had made unwanted sexual advances early in her career. Under mounting pressure, the Murdoch family reportedly gave Ailes an ultimatum: resign by August 1st or be fired. He resigned on July 21, 2016. By September, 21st Century Fox, Then the parent company of Fox News had settled with Carlson for a reported $20 million and issued a rare apology saying, "We sincerely regret and apologize for the fact that Gretchen was not treated with the respect and dignity that she and all of our colleagues deserve." But the rot ran deeper. In August 2016, former host Andrea Tantaros said she too had approached executives in 2015 about inappropriate behavior by Ailes. Instead of action, she was demoted, then pulled off the air completely. She later filed her own harassment lawsuit, alleging that Ailes wasn't the only offender. She named Bill O'Reilly, Scott Brown, and Dean Cain, accusing them of inappropriate comments and unwanted touching. By April 2017, the New York Times revealed that Fox News and O'Reilly had quietly settled 5 lawsuits dating back to 2002, totaling $13 million. These included known cases like Andrea Macris in 2004 and Juliette Huddy in 2017, plus settlements to Rebecca Diamond, Lori Dew, and Rachel Whitlieb Bernstein. One accuser, Wendy Walsh, said she was denied a Fox contributor role after rejecting O'Reilly's offer to come to his hotel suite. The fallout was swift. Within a week of the report, over 60 advertisers pulled out of the O'Reilly factor. He took a vacation on April 11th, but by April 19th, Fox News confirmed he was not coming back. Then there was Bill Shine, the co-president accused of helping cover up many of these allegations. He resigned on May 1st, 2017, and the scandals didn't stop. In July 2017, Charles Payne of Fox Business Network was suspended after political commentator Scottie Nell Hughes accused him of sexual harassment. Payne admitted to a 3-year affair with Hughes, but denied any harassment. Hughes claimed the relationship was coerced under the impression it would help her career. After ending it and reporting him, her appearances on the network sharply declined. By August 2017, another bombshell dropped. The Huffington Post reported that Eric Bolling had sent lewd messages to multiple women at Fox News and Fox Business. He was suspended and later let go after more women, including Caroline Heldman, came forward with claims of inappropriate conduct. From Laura Ingram's early controversies to the many harassment claims against big names like Roger Ailes, Bill O'Reilly, and Eric Bolling, these events show serious problems with the culture at Fox News. Even though some people were forced to leave and the company made public apologies, it often took lawsuits, media attention, and public outrage to make anything happen. What do you think about Ingram? And do you think Fox News will stop hiring controversial figures anytime soon? Share your thoughts with us in the comments down below. Also, click on the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.